In the court hearing around the murder case that Lil Baby is tied to, this happened. If that sounds like the voice of Lil Baby, aka Dominique Jones, that's because it is. But wait, there's more. Lil Baby has replied to the allegations, but the fact that they got a wiretap already means that things may have already gotten out of hand. From music video controversy to murder for hire allegations. In February 2025, a routine press conference by the Atlanta Police Department suddenly turned into a bombshell moment for the hip-hop community. Without initially naming names, police officials made stunning allegations against what they described as an Atlanta-based rapper, claiming this artist's actions had contributed to a chain of violence that ultimately resulted in the deaths of 2 teenage boys. The forceful language used by Major Ralph Woolfolk was striking, particularly his characterization of the unnamed rapper's actions as cowardly, and his direct promise to hold this person responsible. Initially, the music industry was buzzing with speculation about who this rapper might be. The mystery was short-lived. Within hours, local news outlet Channel 2 Action News obtained arrest warrants confirming that the rapper in question was Dominique Jones, better known as Lil Baby. This revelation sent shockwaves through the music world, as Lil Baby isn't just any rapper. He's one of the biggest stars in contemporary hip-hop, a Grammy winner with multiple platinum records and a massive fan base. The initial allegations centered around a music video shoot in May 2024. According to police, Lil Baby filmed a video in an area of Atlanta controlled by a gang called OMF, Only My Family, which they described as rival territory to his affiliated 4PF, Four Pockets Full, label. This action, authorities claimed, inflamed an existing gang conflict. During that video shoot, violence did erupt, with 3 men being shot, though all survived. Lil Baby himself was unharmed, but according to police, this incident sparked a series of retaliatory actions that escalated over the following months, culminating in a July 2024 shooting that killed 2 13-year-old boys, Layman Freeman and Jacody Davis, and injured an 11-year-old, Dontavius Davis. At that point, the allegations, while serious, were primarily about Lil Baby's role in indirectly escalating gang tensions rather than directly ordering violence. However, in a dramatic development on April 1st, 2025, these allegations took an even more serious and concrete turn. According to reports from The Source and posts on social media platform X, Atlanta-based lead gang investigator Marissa Viverito presented wiretap evidence in court allegedly proving that Lil Baby placed bounties on individuals' heads as part of murder for hire plots. What makes this development particularly damning is that, unlike the previous allegations, we now have access to actual court testimony from Viverito about these alleged murder for hire plots. The testimony specifically references intercepts of conversations discussing tickets that Lil Baby allegedly placed on people's heads. Most crucially, the testimony then directly names Lil Baby as the person allegedly putting out these bounties. This testimony represents a significant escalation from the previous allegations. No longer are authorities merely suggesting that Lil Baby's music video inadvertently sparked gang violence. They're now presenting what they claim is evidence that he actively participated in planning violence through murder for hire plots. For his part, Lil Baby has consistently denied any wrongdoing. When the initial allegations emerged in February 2025, he took to Instagram with a brief but defiant message. "Thanks for all the concerns. Please don't be misinformed by fake news. I'm overly good." This short statement was clearly intended to reassure fans and industry partners that he wasn't facing imminent arrest, despite rumors swirling on social media. The dismissal of the allegations as fake news represented a complete rejection of the police narrative. Lil Baby didn't rely solely on social media to defend himself. He quickly activated his legal team, led by prominent attorneys Drew Findling and Marissa Goldberg, who released a more comprehensive statement to the media. Their response to the February allegations was unequivocal, calling the police's reference to Lil Baby complete and total nonsense. Their statement addressed specific aspects of the allegations, particularly the implication that Lil Baby shouldn't have been filming in certain parts of Atlanta. To say that he couldn't shoot a music video in his hometown, a place that he loves and has continued to uplift, is disgraceful. Even more, the location for a major music video shoot is a decision made by a professional team and is not a decision made by any individual. This response highlighted 2 key elements of Lil Baby's defense strategy. First, emphasizing his positive relationship with Atlanta, and second, diffusing responsibility by noting that music video locations are typically chosen by production teams rather than artists themselves. As of April 2nd, 2025, neither Lil Baby nor his legal team has issued a formal formal response to Vivarito's wiretap evidence claims, though given their vigorous denial of the earlier allegations, it seems likely they will contest these even more serious accusations with equal force. The Breakfast Club, a popular radio show, discussed the earlier allegations against Lil Baby, highlighting the skepticism many felt about connecting a music video shoot to subsequent violence. However, this commentary occurred before the emergence of Vivarito's court testimony about alleged murder-for-hire plots. The new wiretap evidence changes the conversation entirely, moving from questions about indirect responsibility to potential direct criminal conspiracy. To fully understand the gravity of Lil Baby's situation, it's important to examine his path to stardom and previous encounters with the law. Born Dominique Armani Jones in Atlanta's Oakland City neighborhood, Lil Baby's journey to hip-hop fame began after serving time in prison. According to reports, he served approximately 2 to 3 years in prison around 2014 to 2016 for drug and weapon charges. Following his release, he launched his music career with his debut mixtape, Perfect Timing, in 2017, marking the beginning of a remarkable rise in the hip-hop industry. Since achieving fame, Lil Baby has had several other brushes with the law, including a 2019 arrest in Atlanta for reckless driving, a 2021 detention in France during Paris Fashion Week for allegedly transporting drugs, and a 2024 arrest in Las Vegas for carrying a concealed weapon without a permit. These previous incidents, while concerning, pale in comparison to the current allegations. The wiretap evidence presented by Marissa Viverito, if deemed credible by courts, could represent the most serious legal challenge of Lil Baby's life, potentially ending the career he built after leaving prison less than a decade ago. The wiretap evidence and investigator Viverito's testimony. On April 1, 2025, Atlanta lead gang investigator Marissa Viverito presented wiretap evidence in court, allegedly proving that Lil Baby had placed bounties on individuals' heads as part of murder-for-hire schemes. The court proceeding was captured in audio, recordings that have since circulated online, giving us insight into the specific allegations being made. In the court audio, we hear a prosecutor questioning Viverito about intercepted communications that allegedly implicate Lil Baby in orchestrating bounties. Viverito identifies the speakers in the intercepted call. The Mr. Sanders referenced here appears to be Keontae Sanders, who was previously identified in reports about the July 2024 shooting. Sanders is reportedly a member of the OMF gang and was already incarcerated at Hancock State Prison during some of these events, allegedly coordinating actions using contraband cell phones. The testimony then turns to the meaning of the term tickets, used in the intercepted communications. Most crucially, the questioning then directly connects these alleged bounties to Lil Baby. This testimony represents the most direct and serious accusation against Lil Baby to date. But how credible is Marissa Viverito, and how solid is this wiretap evidence? Viverito is described as an Atlanta-based lead gang investigator, likely affiliated with the Atlanta Police Department or a related task force. Her role suggests she has significant experience investigating gang activities and access to surveillance tools and intelligence unavailable to the public. However, specific biographical details about her career are not extensively documented in public sources, making it difficult to independently assess her track record or expertise. As for the wiretap evidence itself, several factors are worth considering when evaluating its strength. First, the court audio we've heard doesn't include the actual intercepted communications, only Viverito's characterization of them. This means the public doesn't have direct access to the original conversations that allegedly implicate Lil Baby. We're relying on Viverito's interpretation of what was said and by whom. Second, there appears to be a level of hearsay involved. The testimony indicates that the speakers on the call were discussing what they believed or had heard about Lil Baby placing bounties, rather than direct knowledge or first-hand communication with him about such plans. This introduces a layer of separation between Lil Baby and the alleged murder-for-hire plots. Third, as of April 2, 2025, Lil Baby has not been formally charged based on Viverito's wiretap evidence, suggesting that authorities may still be building their case or determining whether the evidence meets the threshold for criminal charges. The legal admissibility of the wiretap evidence will likely be a major point of contention if formal charges are brought. Wiretap evidence must be legally obtained with proper warrants and procedures to be admissible in court. If these protocols weren't followed, the evidence could potentially be excluded from any formal proceedings. There's also a broader context to consider. Atlanta police have faced criticism for targeting high-profile rappers to address broader crime issues, as seen in cases like Young Thug's RICO trial. This pattern raises questions about whether there could be bias or selective enforcement at play in the case against Lil Baby. So what defense strategies might Lil Baby and his legal team employ against these wiretap allegations? While they haven't issued a specific response to Viverito's claims as of April 2, 2025, several approaches seem likely based on their previous statements and standard legal practice. First, They will likely challenge the authenticity and context of the wiretap recording. Intercepted communications can be ambiguous, with slang, coded language, or references that might be misinterpreted by those outside the conversation. Defense attorneys typically argue that law enforcement has taken such communications out of context or misunderstood their meaning. They may particularly focus on the hearsay nature of the evidence presented in court. From Vivarito's testimony, it appears that the speakers on the call were discussing rumors or things they had heard about Lil Baby, rather than direct communications with him about placing bounties. This introduces reasonable doubt about whether he was actually involved in any murder-for-hire plots. Second, they could challenge the legality of how the wiretaps were obtained, potentially seeking to have them excluded as evidence if proper procedures weren't followed. Precedents like United States v. Crabtree 2009 highlight that illegally obtained wiretaps can be excluded from court proceedings. Third, they may question the credibility of the speakers on the intercepted calls. If one of the speakers is Keontae Sanders, who was previously reported to have planned to extort Lil Baby for $5 million, they could argue that he had motivation to falsely implicate the rapper in criminal activities. This extortion angle complicates the narrative about Lil Baby's role, suggesting he was potentially a target of rival gang members rather than simply an aggressor. His legal team could use this to argue that the wiretap evidence might reflect attempts to frame him rather than genuine criminal activity on his part. Beyond these specific legal tactics, Lil Baby's team is likely to continue emphasizing his positive contributions to Atlanta and his commitment to legitimate business pursuits. They've previously highlighted his philanthropy efforts and community initiatives, positioning him as someone invested in uplifting rather than endangering his community. They may also point to Lil Baby's 2021 White House visit with then Vice President Kamala Harris to discuss social justice issues as evidence of his engagement with legitimate political and social channels, contrasting with the criminal image law enforcement projects. The rebranding of his label provides another potential defense element. In December 2024, Lil Baby announced that 4PF was transitioning to Glass Window Entertainment, potentially in response to growing legal scrutiny. His team could argue that this transition demonstrates his commitment to distancing himself from any street elements and focusing purely on legitimate music business. From a broader perspective, Lil Baby's legal team might also challenge what they see as a pattern of Atlanta law enforcement targeting successful rappers with gang allegations. The ongoing RICO case against Young Thug and YSL has drawn criticism from some legal observers for its broad application of racketeering laws to a music label, and Lil Baby's attorneys could potentially argue that their client is facing similar overreach. The jump from allegations about a provocative music video shoot to alleged murder-for-hire plots represents a significant escalation in the narrative. Without clear public evidence linking these incidents, Lil Baby's team might argue that the narrative feels disjointed and lacks coherence. While this commentary from The Breakfast Club addresses the earlier allegations rather than the wiretap claims, it highlights how the narrative has shifted. Initially, the discussion centered on whether Lil Baby could be held responsible for violence that occurred when he wasn't present. The wiretap allegations suggest a much more direct involvement in orchestrating violence, representing a dramatic change in the accusations against him. While focusing on the legal defense, Lil Baby and his team must also manage the significant damage these allegations could do to his career and business interests, regardless of their ultimate legal outcome. The association with murder-for-hire plots, even if never proven in court, could potentially lead brands, venues, and other business partners to distance themselves from the rapper. Public reaction, industry impact, and potential outcomes. The public reaction to the wiretap allegations has been markedly different from the response to the initial claims about Lil Baby's music video shoot. When the first allegations emerged in February 2025, fan reactions were predominantly supportive, with many questioning the fairness of holding him responsible for others' violent actions. Comments on social media platforms like X, formerly Twitter, expressed skepticism about the police narrative, with statements like, "So since y'all can't control y'all city, it's Lil Baby fault," and "Arrest him for what? Why aren't they finding the shooter?" However, the emergence of Vivarito's court testimony about alleged murder-for-hire plots has created a significant shift in public perception. The specificity of the allegations, particularly the direct naming of Dominique Jones in connection with placing tickets or bounties on people's heads, has caused even some loyal fans to express concern or adopt a more cautious wait-and-see approach. Social media discussions now reflect a more divided fan base, with some continuing to defend Lil Baby by questioning the credibility of the wiretap evidence or suggesting he's being targeted unfairly by law enforcement, while others express shock at the seriousness of the allegations and the potential implications for his career and freedom. Industry reactions have similarly evolved in response to the escalating allegations. The initial claims about the music video shoot were met with relatively minimal business impact. but the murder-for-hire allegations represent a potentially more serious threat to Lil Baby's career and commercial viability. While no major brands or business partners have publicly disassociated from Lil Baby as of April 2, 2025, industry insiders suggest that behind-the-scenes conversations are happening about the potential risks of maintaining these relationships. Concert promoters, streaming platforms, and corporate sponsors are likely assessing their options, weighing the allegations against the rapper's commercial value and the potential for reputation damage by association. Fellow artists have largely refrained from public commentary on the situation, with a few exceptions offering general support without specifically addressing the wiretap allegations. This cautious approach reflects both the seriousness of the claims and a reluctance to become entangled in what could evolve into a major criminal case. Music industry executives familiar with the Atlanta scene have privately acknowledged the complexity of operating in an environment where music, business, and street elements often intersect. While few are willing to speak on record about Lil Baby's specific situation, there's a general recognition that the lines between record labels and street organizations can sometimes blur, creating legally precarious situations for artists. The wiretap evidence presented by Marissa Viverito adds a new dimension to this discussion. If substantiated, it would suggest not just an unfortunate blurring of lines, but deliberate criminal conspiracy. However, there are still several factors that create uncertainty about the strength of this evidence. First, as noted by legal experts, the testimony we've heard indicates that the speakers on the intercepted call were discussing what they believed or had heard about Lil Baby placing bounties, rather than direct knowledge or first-hand communication with him about such plans. This introduces an element of hearsay that could potentially weaken the case. Second, we don't have access to the full context of the intercepted communications or information about who the speakers were and their potential motivations. If one of the speakers is Keontae Sanders, who was previously reported to have planned to extort Lil Baby for $5 million, questions could be raised about whether he had motivation to falsely implicate the rapper. Third, as of April 2, 2025, Lil Baby has not been formally charged based on Viverito's wiretap evidence, suggesting that authorities may still be evaluating whether the evidence is strong enough to support criminal charges. This delay in charging could indicate that prosecutors recognize potential weaknesses in the case. As for the path forward, several scenarios seem possible for Lil Baby based on the current information. The first possibility is that despite Viverito's wiretap claims, no formal charges are filed against Lil Baby. This could occur if prosecutors determine that the evidence is insufficient or inadmissible, particularly if it relies heavily on hearsay or was obtained through questionable means. In this scenario, while Lil Baby might continue to face public scrutiny, the absence of formal charges would allow him to maintain his career with relatively minimal disruption. The second possibility is that Lil Baby faces limited charges related to his alleged gang associations, such as criminal association or obstruction, rather than direct charges for murder conspiracy. Even in this scenario, given his resources and high-profile legal team, he might be able to negotiate a plea deal that avoids significant jail time, allowing him to preserve at least some of his career momentum. The third and most severe scenario would be formal charges directly related to the alleged murder-for-hire plots. If prosecutors believe Viverito's wiretap evidence is strong enough, they might charge Lil Baby with conspiracy to commit murder or similar serious offenses. Alternatively, they could pursue a RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act case targeting 4PF as a criminal enterprise, with Lil Baby as its alleged leader. This third scenario would represent the greatest legal danger to Lil Baby and could potentially result in substantial prison time if he were convicted. It would also likely cause the most severe damage to his career, with brands, venues, and other business partners almost certainly distancing themselves from an artist facing such serious charges. The murder-for-hire allegations are particularly damaging because they suggest active, intentional involvement in violence rather than mere association or indirect influence. If proven, such allegations would be difficult to reconcile with the image of an artist who has positioned himself as a success story, someone who left behind illegal activities to build a legitimate career in music. This testimony from Viverito, explicitly defining tickets as bounties intended to harm or kill people, represents a level of specificity and seriousness that goes far beyond the earlier allegations about a provocative music video location. If credible, it would be difficult for Lil Baby to dismiss these claims as simply fake news or attribute them to law enforcement overreach. However, it's worth noting that there are reasons to approach Viverito's claims with some skepticism. The jump from filming a video in a rival area, May 2024, to allegedly orchestrating murder-for-hire plots represents a significant escalation in the narrative without clear public direct evidence linking these incidents. The claims also come in the context of Atlanta police facing pressure to address gang violence, potentially creating incentives to target high-profile figures. Furthermore, Lil Baby's public persona, including his White House visit with then Vice President Kamala Harris to discuss social justice in 2021, contrasts sharply with the image of someone organizing hits. While this doesn't prove his innocence, it does suggest a more complex picture than law enforcement may be presenting. There's also the question of bias in law enforcement's approach. Atlanta police have faced criticism for targeting high-profile rappers to address broader crime issues, as seen in cases like Young Thug's RICO trial. This pattern raises the possibility of exaggerated or selective prosecution, which Lil Baby's legal team would likely highlight in any defense. Regardless of the legal outcome, these allegations could significantly impact Lil Baby's career trajectory. The music industry has shown varying levels of tolerance for artists facing legal troubles, often depending on the specific nature of the allegations and the strength of the artist's fan base. Murder-for-hire allegations represent one of the most serious categories of criminal claims, likely creating substantial challenges even if no convictions ultimately result. Looking ahead, Lil Baby's response to the wiretap allegations will be crucial. His team will need to balance vigorous legal defense with careful public relations strategy, addressing the claims directly enough to maintain credibility with fans and industry partners without saying anything that could compromise his legal position. The coming weeks and months will be critical in determining whether these allegations represent a temporary challenge or a career-ending crisis for Lil Baby. If formal charges do emerge based on Vivarito's wiretap evidence, the case could become one of the most significant legal proceedings in recent hip-hop history, with substantial implications for how the industry approaches artists with alleged gang ties. After all, in this video on your screen, there's a story that highlights exactly what I just mentioned, so head over there right now.